Thanks for watching Afternoon Live. Resistance to change is a natural human tendency to make us feel safe in an uncertain world. Here with tips to help us all embrace change, we welcome back recovery expert and author of Conscious Creation, TJ Woodward. It's so good to see you.
So good to see you again as well. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Let's talk. So if we really think about it, change happens all around us all the time. So why is it so hard for us to accept so often?
Well, I think a lot of us really do want things to stay the same. And the root of that might be that we haven't really anchored in who we really are. We haven't really connected with our true purpose. And so we're looking to the outside world to bring us stability. And we all know in the external world, the only constant is actually change. We can count on it.
Do you have some ideas for us to manage this? It's an inevitability. I mean, change is going to come no matter what. So how can we best deal with that?
I think the more we're anchored in our true nature, and if that sounds a little esoteric, it simply means this. We come into the world as these whole and perfect beings. You look at a little infant and we're a blank canvas, or we're these little precious beings. And then we end up getting programmed by the world to believe we're not good enough, unworthy, not lovable. And we walk around with these beliefs. And if we feel broken inside, we start to see the world is broken outside, and then we try to live our lives from the outside in. And it's fine to do that, but the issue is it's not always going to work, because sometimes we can control the circumstances of our lives, but sometimes it's more about anchoring in who we are and trusting that the outside world will take care of itself.
And what about making peace with impermanence, just kind of accepting the fact that it's going to happen? And like you said, we can only control a certain number of things in our universe.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that has brought me the most freedom, and when working with people, one of the concepts that I introduce is this idea of making peace with impermanence. You know, we hear people say things like, if I ever die, or if my partner ever dies, or if my mom ever dies, but we know on some level that in the external world, things are always changing. We will experience love, we will experience loss. The more peace we can make with that, the better. The analogy I like to use is, imagine you're building a sandcastle. We know the water's going to come in and wash it away, but we still want to build that sandcastle. And if anything, there's something even more precious about it, knowing that it's really only this moment that we have.
When I was going to ask you about the idea of loss, because that's a huge change that you said all of us are going to experience at some point in our lives. You make peace with it, you acknowledge that it comes, but even if you feel like you've prepared yourself as much as possible, it's still really painful in the moment, right?
Yeah, and that's really what you're pointing to, I think, is the most important piece. When I actually allow myself to feel, allow myself to grieve, many of us go into a story like, maybe I shouldn't feel this way, or I shouldn't feel that way, or we let ourselves grieve for a little while, and then there's a mechanism that shuts it down. So the more we're able to actually be present with our feelings, the more those feelings work through us or move through us. If you look at a little pre-programmed human, like a 2-year-old or 3-year-old, they feel their feelings very deeply. And if we let them, those feelings just move right through them and they go back to their state of happiness.
That's true. They've got a good idea there. Okay, what about this idea, if nothing changes, then nothing changes? Is that a good reminder that, the world is going to keep turning?
The world is going to keep turning, and I have a choice if I want to make any internal changes. There's this great meme that there's a person standing in front of a crowd and they say, "Who wants change?" And everyone raises their hand. And then they say, "Who wants to change?" And no one raises
Oh
their
my
hand.
gosh.
So a lot of times we want change in the world. Like, we see that in our political environment now. We think the leader is going to bring the change, but at some point, this is really about making those internal changes so that we can actually start to consciously create our life, instead of only counting on the outer circumstances to bring us joy or happiness.
Yeah, we've got to look internally sometimes for sure. What about the inner changeless place that we all have? Is that kind of going back to the idea of just being true to who you are?
It is. And it's this knowing that we come into the world as these whole and perfect beings, and that there is a place within us that is unharmed and unharmable. And I think a lot of times, as I said earlier, we say the only constant is change. But when we make contact with and cultivate a relationship with that part of us that is changeless, that changeless inner dimension, we're able to then anchor in that. And as things change in the outer world, we're not as pulled by them. It doesn't mean, as you said, it doesn't mean we don't feel sad if we lose someone or if someone passes away, but we're anchored in something much deeper so we can allow ourselves to feel, and then we're not just pulled by the circumstances of life.
There you go. Great stuff. Hey, thank you so much for stopping by. It was great chatting with you.
Thank you, as always, with you too.
The book again is Conscious Creation. We'll have more information on our website at katu.com.